I'm Pit Trekkie, and welcome to the premiere episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. So just to kind of get started with the beginning of this show, just maybe give you a little bit of background about me. I'm currently 36 years old. I live in a little suburb right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I currently work as a social worker at a local agency. I work with children with mental health issues and adolescents as well. I've been doing that for about 6 years. It's a very rewarding job for me. I've met a lot of great people, worked with a lot of great people. I currently am married. I've been married for 14 years to my beautiful wife, Brandy. We have 4 cats. So really that's about my whole pedigree of who I am. But I also work at a local hospital, a mental health hospital in the Pittsburgh area as well, part-time. So I'm a pretty busy dude, 2 jobs, and now I'm adding this show on, but I'm really looking forward to networking with a lot of other wonderful Star Trek fans, because I feel like I've got a whole lot to say, and I want to share that passion. Sometimes I've got so much passion for Star Trek that I just want to explode, and just because I want to share it with somebody. So that's pretty much an introduction into me. So basically what I'm asking is this question. Why are we Star Trek fans? What brought us into Star Trek in general? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, my little journey into Star Trek. I became a Star Trek fan when I was 6 years old, September 1987. So I'm about to hit my 30 years of fandom here in Star Trek, which is really exciting for me. I think what started it was, I remember when I was in kindergarten, when I was 5, 6 years old, I remember one time actually watching my parents. They were watching an episode of Star Trek, and all of a sudden they said they were watching it, and I said, "Why are you watching that stupid Star Trek?" Granted to you, I was 6 years old at the time, okay? Little did I know how important that show, and eventually that franchise, would become to my life. So when Next Generation premiered, I got really interested, and so did my twin brother, in the different Enterprises. We had the Enterprise D, obviously, from the Next Generation, and we got really interested about the original Enterprise, and then the original Enterprise getting destroyed, then the Enterprise A, and we just thought it was really neat, and that just kind of piqued our interest, and from there, that's just kind of where it grew. I've got so many memories, excellent memories from my childhood and my adolescence about being a Star Trek fan. There are some pretty funny stories. First of all, I'm an identical twin, so he and I share that bond very closely with the whole Star Trek experience. We also have a younger brother who was into it as much as we were, but I think my twin brother and I were kind of more like bonded with it and talked about it a lot more than our younger brother would have actually done. I can remember growing up, some of the first Star Trek memories we had is we used to pretend that we were Kirk and Spock. I was Kirk and he was Spock. And our living room was actually set up in a way that it kind of felt like we were on the bridge. So we would use our couch. My captain's chair was actually the middle cushion in the couch. And then to the left and right were obviously the helm and navigation stations. And we also had a coffee table in front, which became the stations. Then obviously we had a communication station and we had a science station for my brother to use. And it was really interesting. We used end tables to be the side stations for the communication and the science stations were. And then our TV was right in front of the couch, so that became our view screen. We also had like these metal grates in the floor for heat, furnace, things like that, and we had an organ that we used to play. Well, the organ became the transporter controls, and the vents on the floor are the transporter pad. So we had plenty of times where we transported up and down and all around to different places. So a lot of good memories with that. I remember playing that game all the time. I remember one time we were swimming at my next door neighbor's pool, and we pretended we were on a water planet. And I remember, you know the little flap that goes in and up like this? I forget if that's just the filter or whatever it is. But there was also this water shooting out of like a spigot. And I remember that we, as the crew, we had to swim underneath that in order to not get zapped, or we were going to be in trouble, or die, or whatever. So those were some little bit of fun things that we did as well. Some of the other things that I really remember about Star Trek, another story is when we first got really into it, my twin brother actually made himself a pair of Spock ears with notebook paper. He actually colored them in and he taped them to his ears. And what was really interesting was my dad would take us shopping. We went to Shop and Save at Norwin Hill Shopping Center. And he would go in the store dressed as Spock with his paper ears on. And people would laugh and carry on. And they thought it was hysterical. Now, for me, being Captain Kirk, I was really interested in those maroon uniforms that they had starting with Star Trek II. And I loved how the uniforms would flap open. So I tried to make my own flap. But I looked like a big blob of white here on my shirt and on my chest. And it really looked like a frilly blouse. It looked really bad. But Matt actually looked pretty cool with the fake ears on. I was really something. I also remember loving the battles from Star Trek II between the Enterprise and the Reliant. And I actually used to recreate them when I would go into the store. Do you guys remember at the deli, they used to have those things that said, please take a number? Well, I would actually pull those off and I'd take two of them. One of them, actually, I pretended was the Enterprise because it had two side, like, holsters or whatever, and then at the bottom it was round. So that number became the Enterprise. And then for the Reliant, I would just flip it over. And I would just tear and rip and pull things apart to cause the battle damage. I must have reenacted the Battle of Mutara Nebula about 30, 50 times over my childhood. But I always had fun, and of course I threw the garbage on the floor because I was lazy and I was little, but I really enjoy that. Star Trek, that's why it's so important to me at this point in my life. I'm 36 years old, I've been a fan for 30 years. Now, there might be a lot of people out there to say, don't you really need to get a life? Like, I mean, you're playing Star Trek, you're doing videos of it online. Let me tell you a little bit of something about what Star Trek means to me. Star Trek means to me many different things. First of all, it's a reminder of my youth. It makes me feel like a kid again. I've watched those episodes on all the different series, I can't tell you how many times over the years. There are times, we actually have some old VHS tapes, tons of them, where we have the episodes, some from The Next Generation, and basically all of them from Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. They're actually from the day the episode aired. So we actually have little pieces of commercials, and we got previews for the next all-new episode. Those to me are like a time capsule. Because I can honestly tell you, if I watch some of these episodes, I can sit and I can remember how old I was, what grade I was in, who I was dating at the time, who my friends were at the time, were we at a band function because I was in the marching band. I mean, those just remind me so much of all the different little things and little moments that added up in my life. Also, it reminds me very much, again, of family. I remember being really young, my family, my twin brother, my younger brother, and both my parents, we would sit down and we'd watch Star Trek episodes together. We would pop popcorn, we would watch the movies together. So it was a very uniting experience for us as a family. Also, in the years that the movies would come out, that was like a big major event at my house. We would watch episodes before we went to go see the movies, and they would just be so excited that we would just want to burst. And then we'd finally go see the movie, and it'd be like, satisfied at last. So again, that's another reason for the memories. Also, Star Trek led me into adulthood. Kind of like, again, like I was saying about the markers, I was 1st grade through 7th grade, I had Next Generation. So that kind of that took me through my childhood years and started into my adolescence. Deep Space Nine premiered in 1993 when I was in 6th grade. So that took me into my adolescence, and the final episode aired about less than a week before I graduated from high school. Voyager finished me up, it started in 1995, I finished me up in middle school at 8th grade, and then took me to the end of my sophomore year of college. As a matter of fact, I started dating my wife about a week or two before the finale aired. And I remember actually going to Giant Eagle where she was working. It was a grocery store in North Huntington, and I went to see her about an hour before the episode aired. So that kind of makes it a little special for me because Voyager's ending was kind of around the time where I met my wife. Enterprise began in 2001 when I was 20, and that took me into my adulthood. You can imagine what I felt like, and I'm sure like a lot of fans felt in 2005 when Enterprise ended. Just the sadness. There were 18 years straight of Star Trek being on TV. That was from 6 years old to 24. You know, it was a big chunk of my life. You know, so I was pretty upset when Enterprise went off. I'm glad that the Kelvin era or timeline movies came out. They're all fine and dandy. They're good for what they are, but they just don't feel like my Star Trek. You know what I mean? I just didn't grow up with that. Moving into Star Trek Discovery premiering here on September 24th. 5 days, people. 5 days. Can you believe it? It's going to be here before you know it. I can't wait for that to show up. So I'm really looking forward to having Star Trek back in my life on TV. It's going to be a wonderful thing. I get to talk about it with other people. Sorry I had to switch chips there. Sorry for that little blip that happened. So kind of getting back to my fandom as well. One thing I've learned over 30 years of being a Star Trek fan is if you don't know somebody who shares that passion with you, it can be a very lonely experience. I've noticed that specifically with my twin brother. He's been in the military for 14 years, and that's as long as I've been in mental health, and I've been married. And I find myself really craving wanting to chat with him about it, and I don't always get to because he's away. And really, nobody that I've ever worked with at any of my other jobs kind of really, I guess you could say, really liked it or was really interested. So I always felt like the outsider. Like even now when I go to work, I know I'm different. I know I'm alone. But that's okay. That hasn't stopped me from being the big nerd of the agency. My whole office is all Star Trek. I talk Star Trek all the time. Now I'm adding a show into it. So really, I don't want to have a lonely fan experience anymore. What I want now is to expand and meet people. And that's what I'm hoping this show is going to do. Entertain all of you first. I want you to see my real interest in everything, but at the same time, meet some new people, make some new friends. I also wanted to make it very clear that this is a Pittsburgh show. I love the Pittsburgh area. We have wonderful sports teams. We got great entertainment here. It's a beautiful city. I miss the Star Trek fandom that was in Pittsburgh, though. I remember being little and there being conventions at least once or twice a year down at Sheridan Station Square. Always had a blast with that. I do know that there is one Star Trek fan club in the Pittsburgh area. I happen to know 3 of the crew members. They're very nice people. They've asked me to join the Inferno a couple times, but I told them I couldn't because of my work schedule. So sometimes being an adult, that kind of trumps the fun, you know, but I'm really interested to maybe even get a history of what Star Trek fandom has been like here in Pittsburgh. One thing I want to do is start seeing Star Trek fans coming out of their Star Trek closets here and being proud and expressing themselves as fans. You go anywhere out in Pittsburgh or out in the other surrounding counties, and you can see people with Star Wars shirts galore. You can see Star Wars stuff all over the place in the stores. Heck, I even see people wearing Doctor Who stuff more than I do see people wearing Star Trek stuff. I want to start seeing Star Trek fans coming out and actually saying, yeah, I'm a Star Trek fan, I'm proud of it, and that's just the way it is. You know, so I'm hoping maybe this show will bring them out a little bit, and we can maybe all meet some way by communicating online, whatever. All right. So really, what are the goals I have for this show? Well, I definitely want to have some discussions on fandom. What is the status of fandom right now? I've noticed that there's been a lot of arguing and name calling, especially with people being divided of whether or not Discovery is going to be real Star Trek and is it good or is it going to be bad. Just a lot of division. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'd love to do different analysis of past episodes and movies. Star Trek The Next Generation's 30th anniversary is coming up. I maybe would like to do something with that. I'm hoping. We'll see what happens. Keep our fingers crossed. Convention updates. Once a month I'm going to have a segment called Convention Corner. That's where I'm going to find out some information on conventions happening throughout the country and letting everybody know what those are. Star Trek product reviews. Now, being a social worker, I don't make the greatest amount of money in the world. I'm not Mr. Rich. But I have spent a decent amount of money, as you can see, on Star Trek memorabilia that I really enjoy. If I end up getting some new things, I would definitely love to talk about them here on the show, even if they're a couple of years old and I just get them out of the box. You know, I'd love to do some reviews. Definitely what a lot of the show is going to be in the next few weeks, obviously, are review episodes from the new episodes of Star Trek Discovery. Really looking forward to getting onto CBS All Access. Gonna watch the episodes first as a Star Trek fan and just enjoy it for what it is. Then obviously I'll sit around and I'll analyze it, and then I'll bring you my review each week. At this point, the new episodes are supposed to be airing on Tuesdays, and I did that because the episodes are going to air on Sunday. That'll give me Monday and most of Tuesday with me working to be able to analyze the episodes, film the episodes, and then edit, and then finally get it out to you guys. So hopefully the goal is going to be Tuesdays that a weekly episode will come out. Also, like I said, we're going to be doing, I want to really review your questions and your comments. I want this to be an interactive show. I want you guys to post down below in the comment sections here on YouTube, like and subscribe to my channel. I would love to hear what you have to say about Star Trek fandom, or just in general, any suggestions for the show, episode ideas that maybe you would be interested in that I could try to do. I want this to be our show, not just my show. All right. So now that's going to lead us into a segment on my show called Open Channel. All right, Open Channel is a segment of the show where I'm going to, starting next week, if I have any comments, good or bad, I'm going to read them online. I won't read everybody's, if I get a ton of them or whatever, I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but I can select ones that I think really mean something or have some positive encouragement of things that can be done. I also want to give you guys some little homework assignments. So for your week, your first week homework assignment, what I would like for you to do is you can send it to me on Facebook. You can send it to this show's Twitter page, or just put it down in the comments here on YouTube. Why are you Star Trek fans? You heard me go on with a long-winded speech for 5-6 minutes. I want to hear what your long-winded speeches are, because they matter. They're important. Okay? You're still a fan for a reason, so those stories matter, and I really want to hear about it. I genuinely do. All right? So basically, in the end here, to summarize everything, what I really want from this show is I want a safe place for Star Trek fans to come and have a good time. Let's have a good time talking about Star Trek. Let's get excited again now that Discovery's coming back. You know, let's get excited that maybe eventually there will be a 4th Kelvin timeline movie coming out with Chris Pine. Let's just share our memories. Let's just really get back to, why are we Star Trek fans? Why do we enjoy it so much? And be like, hey, you know what? I'm not ashamed of it. That's just the way it is. All right? So with my show, you may not get the fanciest special effects, but I will promise you, you will get one thing from me: passion. Passionate Trek talk from a passionate Star Trek fan who's been a passionate fan for 30 years. So you're not going to get any mumbo jumbo from me. You're going to get my real heart. I'm going to wear my feelings on my sleeve here about my Star Trek fandom. So that pretty much ends it for this week. I hope that you enjoyed the premiere episode, learning a little bit about me. I'm really excited to learn about any of you that are interested in watching the show. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can type in the search engine Pit Trekkie, and you should come up to my page. You'll see Pittsburgh Trek Chat up in the margin or whatever that is up there. For Facebook, you can go to www.facebook.com/PGH-TrekChat. You could also just type in Pit Trekkie or Pittsburgh Trek Chat in the search engine, and something should come up my page. On Twitter, at PGH Trek Chat, that's my Twitter handle. Also, just type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, or specifically PGH Trek Chat, and it should come up in the search engine on Twitter. I'm really looking forward to going on this journey with all of you. Again, my name is Pit Trekkie, and until next week, may yous live long and prosper.